Afternoon. Uh, at that time of the season where, each and every week is a refocusing on, the attention to really yourself and what you need to do to prepare your football team each and every week. Everybody now knows the offense, defense, and special teams of their opponents. There's plenty of film out there, so it's really about your execution, how you prepare, and then again, how you play. So another opponent that knows us well, Boston College. We've had great games against Boston College. They're always difficult matches. Two universities that share a lot of common ground. Catholic universities, outstanding academic institutions, and certainly a program that we're very familiar with. We'll be playing for the Frank Leahy Trophy, and so trophy game, and well-coached football team. Steve does a great job. I have a lot of respect for Steve Adazio and what he's done, and really creating a football team that plays with some grit, determination, toughness. It's a tough football team. He's a young football team, but one that really brings along his personality and his style. Clearly they are dealing with the loss of a quarterback as well, and making the best of the situation. On defense, Donnie Brown does a great job as a defensive coordinator, veteran defensive coordinator. Their numbers speak for themselves. It's the number one total defense in the country, deservingly so. They are very difficult to run the football on, very aggressive defense, get up in your face, big, physical, strong, outstanding linebackers. I think, when you talk about some specific guys, Stephen Daniels at the linebacker position, Simmons at the safety, they'll hit you. Again, very, very well coached, very good defense, and in a long line of very good defenses that we've played this year. I think we're going to play 7 top 40 defenses this year. And so this one is the best statistically in the country this year. So great challenge for our football team. And again, we've got to take care of what we do. We've got to have a great week of practice. And, play at Fenway Park is going to be exciting. We're really excited about the Shamrock Series. Going on the road has been something that we've really enjoyed. Playing in Boston, playing, in front of great fans. We've got, great support in New England and in particular Boston. There'll be some logistical things that we'll have to work through. We're both on the same sideline. So we're working through that in practice. But should be a great venue and a great night for football. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Brian, I'm not insinuating you would have been a teenager or an older person when this happened, but did you...
When the Red Sox beat the Cardinals?
Well, you were an older person then, but Patriots games in Fenway, did your dad ever take you to one of those?
No, never made it to one. Do remember them playing vividly about a game in particular, but never went to one.
And you went back to Boston in 2012. Is this any different for you, different experience, less people asking for tickets? Or
more people asking for tickets.
More people asking.
Well, it's the venue, right?
Yeah.
It's playing at Fenway Park. It's a 9-1 football team, though we were undefeated when we went back there in 12 as well. So not as well, but we were undefeated when we went back there. But I think it's the Fenway Park attraction, certainly the Shamrock Series, is certainly more of the draw.
And you mentioned logistics with the teams being on the same sideline. What about the tight corners in the end zone? And do you have a good report on what the turf is like?
I do not. They felt very comfortable with what they have put together. We've seen pictures. The sidelines, the end zone seem to be adequate, where we don't seem to have a concern about our players and safety issues. Feel very comfortable, got a schematic of it. They laid down some new sod, but we play on a lot of fields that lay down new sod, fairly regularly in the NFL stadium. So I'm pretty confident. They're a very professional group and feel like the field conditions shouldn't be an issue.
With the offense that Boston College runs, is this a good game to have Martini, Grace in the mix at that outside linebacker position
Yeah.
anyways, and what do you think you'll get from them?
Well, I think we'll get, fundamentally sound football. Both those guys are very conscientious players, and both can play in space. Greer, I thought, did a very nice job as a cover down linebacker for us against Wake. Wake was in, virtually all spread sets. He was out over a number 2 receiver, a Z receiver for virtually the entire game. When they get into some more 2 tight end sets, Jared Grace will get a lion's share of the play, but we'll use those 2 as a tandem in the loss of James Anawalu.
And last one from me, Jonathan Bonner got some playing time this past weekend. What brought that on? What have you been seeing in practice from him? What did you think of him in the game?
Well, I think he brings us a pass rush, and he's becoming a lot more comfortable working inside. He was an outside player for us, and I think it's just, Coach Gilmore's feeling much more comfortable with his ability to play the inside tackle techniques that are needed. As you know, Daniel Cage was not available for us as well, and he became the next man up in that situation.
Coach, over here on your left, another team coming off a bye week. Obviously, not a coincidence. I think we talked about it a little bit last week. But what's been the greatest challenge playing against teams that have an extra week to prepare?
Well, I just think, you become who you are, and then, there's changes in your game plan, and certainly you have to be prepared for some game plan self-scouting adjustments. Tendencies are broken. You go back and you look at what you're doing, and you come back and try to do something different. So you have to be able to do some in-game adjustments, which we were forced to do against Wake Forest, and now we're better prepared, and we'll be ready to do that against Boston College early on.
And how do you feel at this point, a young quarterback going through those kind of mid-game adjustments where you're at times working off of what you had game planned during the week?
Yeah, we feel pretty good about, Deshaun's ability to communicate with us on the sideline and pick things up. He's very smart. And again, his retention is excellent. At halftime, we went over some things that cleaned up some protections for him. We didn't have those issues in the second half. And, he's really good to work with.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Brian, what favorite Fenway memory? What does Fenway remind you of?
Boy, I got a lot of them. Recently, probably sitting up in the green monster seats with my family. That would probably be the most recent. As a kid, probably going with my dad to the '75 World Series. I think those probably stand out. But going to Fenway is an event in itself. It's it's the stadium, but it's the surroundings, and it's always an enjoyable time.
Which game of the series did you go to?
Cincinnati, I can't remember if it was. I'd have to look back on it. I don't know if it was 5 or 6, one of those. Okay, well then it wasn't 5. I can't remember if it was that one or one of the others, but it was an exciting game. I know that.
And understand the concept of the Shamrock Series. Any concern though? I think it's the first time you're going to another team's hometown, and basically this, except for the fact that you're selling the tickets, this is a home game for them.
Yeah, no, I'm not really that concerned. I thought the Temple atmosphere was really, and Clemson really prepared you for being, in kind of that, real hometown. When you drive into the stadium and it's all one team, you kind of are hit with that. Obviously, when we get into the stadium, we think it's going to be obviously a partial Notre Dame crowd. So I think our kids are very well acclimated to that. And late in the season now, being on the road, I think they'll be very, I think, level-headed about it.
And you asked about Romo the other day. Just aside from the fact that he started here so young, just this season, first 4 games, 1 sack, past 5, 8 sacks. Have you seen him do anything differently, or is it something that you've seen that has allowed him to get those sacks?
Well, I think confidence is a great thing for many people, and I think he's just playing right now with, he jumps over a back, launches himself. I mean, he's playing with some of that reckless abandon that at times, he was kind of feeling his way through his role in his play, where now he's really confident in what he's doing and how he's doing it, and I think that's probably the biggest key for him right now.
And just seeing how he's progressing now, do you kind of, I know at the time you have to make decisions, but do you wish that freshman year you could have redshirted him?
Certainly, but, there's no guarantees that, he comes back right after, because he's already going to have his degree, So the catch-22 here at Notre Dame really becomes, most of these guys will have their degree. What's the certainty that they come back, right? So when we're on the fence there, where we think that they can contribute in some way, we'd rather play them because there's really no guarantee that they're going to come back. And, if they're not a frontline player, they want to play. And if they don't play, they'll generally try to find another place where they can get on the field. So it's kind of one of those catch-22s for us.
You talked the other day about Wake Forest playing keep away. Do you expect teams to maybe copy that to try to beat you now? And what can you do to prevent that?
Well, certainly, we've got a pretty good offense, and teams would certainly go into the game thinking that ball control would be a great way to, keep our offense off the field and limit our opportunities. I just think, we were pretty good in third down situations. I think we've got to be better on third down. I think we had a couple third downs where we needed to get off the field, and I think that's what we'll have to see. Getting off the field in third down has to be, key for us.
And what are you looking for improved offensively? Because you said you only had 49 plays, but you had the lowest average per play of the season.
Yeah.
And if you took away that 98-yard run, it was only 3.8 yards a play.
I would say that we just have to be probably a little bit more aggressive. I thought we were a little conservative at times, probably a little bit more aggressive in the areas where we've been, pushing the ball vertically. So we'll get back to being a little bit more aggressive offensively.
And last for me, even though Josh had a great game, you think you missed CJ a little bit there?
Oh, we're a better football team with both of them, without question. CJ's an elite player, and getting him back this week will be beneficial to our football team.
Hey, Brian, you've talked a little bit about Fenway already and some of your memories, but as someone who grew up in Boston, what is it about that place that's just so special to that community?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, baseball in itself. It's, summer pastime. You're dealing, I think, in particular with, getting out of the winter months in Boston, where it can be, long and cold, and you're outdoors. So I think a lot of that, for me was, it's springtime, it's baseball, and you're outdoors and enjoying, being outdoors after sometimes a grueling winter. And I know they went through that this past winter. I think that has a lot to do with it.
There's all sorts of reasons why you might be excited for a game, be it an opponent or what's at stake, but is there ever a stadium you've been more excited to coach in?
No, I think it's classic Shamrock Series. Whether it's Yankee Stadium, Fenway Park. I just think we do a great job of finding those iconic venues. I'll be excited if we could get Lambeau Field. I'd be excited in terms of, those classic, venues. Fenway Park is one of those. So, this one is certainly a great one, and we'll look forward to more just like this.
You've played a couple other teams this year that have had really stout run defenses that have tried to some various levels of success against you. And in those games, frequently, those have also been the games where Will Fuller's gone off. Is that not coincidental, and is that something that will be important to you guys again this week?
Well, I think everybody knows who Will Fuller is, and I don't think that, in particular, there's one game where you go, all right, this is going to be the one. I think you still have to be aggressive and pick your spots. As I was answering the question earlier, Tom's question was, what do you think you'll do differently? I think we just need to continue to be more aggressive. Even if you are playing zone coverage, you can still be aggressive. It doesn't have to just be, well, we're going to load the box and play man. And so I think that's what has to happen regardless of whether they're loading the box or not. I think our offense really took its shape when, we were aggressive downfield.
Brian, to your right. We talk a lot about CJ and Josh and what they've done this year, but maybe don't talk about Autry as much. I was wondering if you could just speak to what's impressed you most about what Autry's done in this first season here.
I just think he's a calming influence to those young players. He's a mentor in a sense that, he can really do a great job off the field with them, spends time with them, does a great job of being there for them when they need him. Both, as I said, he also leads our ministry program. He's just, he's there for the whole person. And, those young guys, in their transition here, lean on Autry quite a bit. And I think he's been, a great addition to our staff, especially with those young backs.
How much of what he's doing is really just simplifying things for a guy like CJ who doesn't have the experience?
Well, I think that's some of it. There's no question that, CJ has a pretty good understanding of the entire offense and its verbiage and nomenclature. I think what Autry does is he gives him a little bit of his experience as a running back and can talk to him in some terms that only a running back who was the all-time leading rusher at Notre Dame can talk to him about. And that's a great one-on-one conversation. And so I can't do that for him. Autry can do that and can talk about some things that can really connect with him. And I think he uses that when he needs it, and I think it's been an effective tool.
And can you just talk about what type of influence have guys like Paul Cantiani and Bernie Gahan had on you?
Well, I think more than anything else, they gave me a chance to play college football. And when you get a chance to play college football, it opens up so many opportunities for you to grow. Both those gentlemen, were my coaches in college and gave me a chance to be a captain and lead and learn how to lead and learn about teamwork, learn about attention to detail, all the things that I espouse today in my own program.
Is there any takeaway maybe from their coaching styles that you have now?
Oh, you steal a little bit of everything, right? From my high school coach, Fred Glatz, to every coach that I've been around. Paul Cantiani was an insurance salesman, and boy, he could sell, right? So you take a little bit of that, right? He was great at that. And Bernie Gahan was he was a blue collar technician. I mean, he was every day. It was about football. It was about the X's and the O's and learning football and watching film and watching tape. So they were two different head coaches. So learned a lot from them.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I had a baseball question for you. I think
Let's go.
You've mentioned before the sport's kind of an escape for you when you do have some downtime in the off season or something. What is it about the pace or the rhythms of baseball that appeals to you as a good break from football?
You can fall asleep for a little bit and keep the game on. It's nice. And wake back up and it's still going on. I think, and for the downtime that we have, which is very little, it's not as stressful. It's not as, it doesn't have the same pace and deadline. It's competitive, but for me, it just is a more relaxing way to watch competition.
Gotcha, thanks.
Yeah. I'm sure Mick doesn't feel that way, but he probably has
Leisurely.
he has a different take on it.
With Torrey, you mentioned the catch against Pitt that he had in the red zone. You told him, like, it's going to be a tight window, you got to make a great catch, but the route that he had to run to get to that point, is that another area where he's kind of run crisper routes and been able to get into that window to make that good catch?
No, he's always been a pretty savvy guy. That was a stutter route off of a safety. He was showing as if he was going to block the safety, and kind of got the safety to sit his feet down and then burst. He's always been really good at that. That's kind of been his, I would say, strength coming in, and then he just hasn't had enough of those opportunities. But as you can see, he's getting more of those kinds of opportunities when we need them. We're going to them, especially those kinds of plays.
In the last 3 weeks, I think his targets are up, his catches are up. So what has he done to really carve out that role, since the start of October, November, whatever it's been?
Probably just us recognizing that he needed to get those touches, and just being smarter coaches.
With BC's defense, I think they've only allowed one rush of over 40 yards, only like 3 over 30. Is this one of those games where the lesson for CJ coming out of Temple was like, hey, you got to really grind out the 3-yard carries? Is this one of those games where that really applies more so?
Yes and no. I don't think you can make a living, with this team or win or score enough points just trying to, stack 3-yard runs against them. It's going to be a long day, They would hope that that's the way you kind of play the game. We've got to try to find explosive plays. So that's why CJ Prosise needs to be in this game. And so, yeah, there's going to be some 3-yard runs that he's got to recognize that that's it. But, we hope to manufacture some other ones as well.
And lastly, you mentioned, Bonner being able to get into the rotation and, starting Rochelle inside. Defensive line depth been an issue the last couple of years in November. How important is that to have that in this month? Well,
we were in desperate straits, as you know, going into the middle to late November last year. And we're in a better position. We'll see where it finishes out, but we're in such a better position through recruiting depth, and we've got some guys that are actually fresh that haven't played much that, if called upon, could help us, and I think they could step in and do a pretty good job.
Brian, up the middle here. When you look at a lot of teams, maybe you can point to one player defensively to game plan against, but with BC, they've got 3 or 4 guys that have more than 10 tackles for loss, number of sacks from different places, so how do you approach trying to game plan them?
It's really a defensive unit philosophy that you're working at more than anything else. So it's not one particular guy. So you're really looking at, how they're coached and, how they're defending down and distance and formationally. So you're right. It's not one guy. You're not trying to do this. You're really attacking a system of defense and how it's coached, and that's how you go about it.
You said when you hired Mike Sanford, you want somebody who would turn the room upside down. Mm-hmm. Has he done that?
Well, I think he's contributed greatly to the energy, the ideas. I think Mike Denbrock's been great. I think Autry. I think everybody has contributed. Harry, everybody, Scott Booker, everybody has contributed greatly to what we're doing. I think where we're feeling, his immediate effects is he's done an incredible job of mentoring and coaching the quarterbacks.
And finally, Trombetti, obviously right place, right time to get that interception for the touchdown, but where have you seen the most development in Andrew this year?
Well, he's a guy, too, that in similar fashion, like Romeo, is gaining confidence. And as he gains more confidence, you'll see more of his athleticism. He returned kickoffs in high school. I mean, he's really athletic. And sometimes you don't see all that come out until they gain that confidence. And he started to gain some of that confidence. And I think as it comes along, you'll see more and more of that continue to show itself.
Brian, in losing Onawalu, what do you talked about what you're gaining with the 2 guys that are going to move into that position. What do you lose from the progress that Onawalu's made?
Well, as you know, he was coming on. I mean, he was playing his best football. Against Pittsburgh, he was aggressive off the edge, had a sack. He's gone from being a very, very good cover down backer to somebody that was tackling effectively, and probably as big a loss in special teams, an outstanding special teams player for us as well. So he will be sorely missed. hopefully, we get him back here in a couple of weeks.
What goes through the mind of a young defensive end who has a live ball laying in front of him? And doesn't,
Yeah.
what kind of explanation did you get for his non-reaction to that?
Well, he wanted to be the official on that play. And I said, well, we have guys out there with striped shirts. You don't have one. So you just need to play. Just a young kid, overthinking it. Just get on the ball. Again, hadn't played a lot this year. Got in there and just thinking too much.
I don't think we've checked in on Tarian Folston lately. How's he doing? What's he doing? Saw him along the sideline on Saturday.
Yeah, doing well, making really good progress. It's hard because you got to keep up with Tranquil, who's a freak in his rehab. But he's matching them for and it's great to have those guys on similar paths relative to the surgery because Torian now has to have a bar, and it's Tranquil. And if Tranquil is a little bit ahead of him, why is it a little bit ahead of you? So they're both making great progress. The guy who's making the best progress right now is Durham Smythe. We're encouraged with Durham that we may even get him back for a playoff situation or in bowl game. So he's made great progress as well. So these guys are really, my point is they're really pushing each other, and we like where they are right now.
Is there any doubt about Folston's return to the program next year?
He has not indicated to me that he would not be back.
Thank you.
Can you just provide an update on this concussion people, Cage, also
Procise
Wisher.
Wisher will be in practice today. Cage has not been cleared for practice. Encouraged, but not cleared for practice.
When you had Trombettian and you moved Rochelle inside, it seemed pass rush wise there was an improvement. How did it grade out overall as far as what you were able to do, even though you said there were some fits that were not very well done there?
Yeah, we weren't as pleased with some of our run fits, but the pass rush was as good as it has been all year. A number of hits on the quarterback, 14 TFLs. We were disruptive in that area.
And what was your critique of the offensive line? Obviously, there are so many different things that Wake Forest did that maybe they didn't during the course of the year. And
Yeah.
the adjustments that they were able to do in the second half, as you say, when Kaiser also was able to get into some correct protections.
Yeah. I thought we missed two protections, that we should have picked up, and it wasn't, they weren't easy. They came from distance. We didn't squeeze on a couple of them. They were very correctable, but they were very difficult. They were first-time pressures that we hadn't seen before. Those you give credit to your opposition. But we protected the quarterback, except for one late in the third quarter where we had a miss and a sack. So I would say that we graded out just okay. It wasn't our best day. We played really well against Pitt. We didn't play quite as well across the board, but I think it's pretty much what I had said after the game. It was just an okay performance by everybody.
With Cage, are you taking kind of a similar approach as you did with ProSize, just not with the protocol, not taking any chances?
Now his is, each case is so different, and Matt Leisler, our doctor, does a great job. They're so individual that he kind of is working with them individually and personally, and Daniels is different than all the other cases, so he'll update us daily on what's going on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brian, at this point of the season, do guys like Alize Jones, Jerry Tillery, do you see a little bit of a wall that those guys are trying to climb over?
I think they're past it. I think they probably hit that, maybe week 8, week 9, right around that that midwinter break. I think there's a bounce back that we're getting from him now. But there definitely was that time where we lost them for a little bit in terms of their peak. But we're definitely see them, coming back to where they were earlier in the year.
When you look at Saturday, do you feel like that was one of Joe Schmidt's better games?
Joe was effective in the way he fitted the run game for us. Couple of uncharacteristic mistakes relative to his positioning. A couple times he was supposed to be out of the box on a couple of plays, which was kind of uncharacteristic. But on the other side of it, he made a couple of plays that he hadn't been making earlier in the year. So we borrowed a couple from the other end that he usually gives us. So it was kind of interesting. But no, he was really solid in this game.
You were asked a little bit earlier about some things Wake Forest did defensively. Do you expect teams to copy that? But in terms of what Deshaun got out of Saturday when he looked at the tape, whether that be maybe some blitzes that he maybe sees in practice from Brian Van Gorder, what do you think he got out of that experience?
He got a lot out of it. There were a couple things there that we should have picked up, and a couple things that he got baited on. A couple that when he saw it right away, he actually knew on the sideline, and we cleaned them up in the second half, and they weren't issues anymore. There were a couple things in coverage that he hadn't got a lot of work on, that he clearly knows, that he got away from some fundamentals. And that's kind of what I talked to him about on the sideline, is that, look, when new things happen, go back to your base, go back to your fundamentals, and they will carry you here. And that's really what he learned from it, is that if I get into something that's new or I don't know what's going on, go back to my fundamentals and it'll carry you, and I think that's what he learned.
This is probably a difficult question, but comparing and contrasting other quarterbacks you've coached, is Deshaun Kaiser sort of like at the top or close to the top in terms of this is the kind of personality I like to coach as a quarterback?
Well, what I love about him is his retention. And when I say retention, is that the quarterback position requires information, and then when you give them that information, they have to listen to that and follow it precisely. They can't kind of follow it. And he's really precise in following the information you give. So he's at the top of the charts, and when you give him information, he doesn't like skip over B and C and go right to D. He's A, B, C, and D. And that's what it requires. A great quarterback has to be that detailed, and he carries that with him, and that's what makes him a really good quarterback.
Did you have any sense of that last year, and how rare is that for a redshirt freshman to have that ABCD process?
Well, I knew he had the traits, and I knew he was really smart in our meetings. I didn't know if he could carry that onto the field, and that was the big question.
Over here on your right. We've talked a lot about Kavari, but Cole Luke seems to have put together a very solid season. Where do you think he's progressed from last year in his first year as a starter to this year?
Eye discipline. It was his best game with eye discipline. Obviously he's got to pull that ball away, on the big play up the sideline. But he's getting so much better with his discipline, and that's what he has to continue to fight and work on, every single day. It doesn't come easy. He's got to work on it every single day. And when he does and he's on it, it was his best game in terms of eye discipline. If he continues down that road, he's going to continue to continue to get better at that position.
How much do you think the experience last year, being thrown in the fire against Devontae Parker, Ty Montgomery, Jalen Strong, helped him for this year?
All those things help. He's not afraid of the moment. There's no question, and I think that helps. If you're sloppy in your technique, if you're not disciplined in what you do, doesn't matter if you play against NFL players. It's not going to help you if your technique is poor. And I think Coach Light does a really good job every single day of pounding that home about discipline, technique, playing the ball in the air, all the fundamentals that you have to have at that position. We're getting better there. We're getting better. It was probably our best day. Couple of eye violations by our safety late in the game. If we have those cleaned up, we have a really, really good day in the back end.
Thanks.
Coach, right in front. Deshaun has 8 rushing touchdowns. He's coming up on Tony Rice and Rick Meyer, who had 9. Pretty impressive. Is there something special about him finding the end zone? Is it a combination of the line? This kid just seems to have that ability to reach in there sometimes.
Well, we're running option. We're running option down there, true read option. Didn't do it with Golson. Didn't do it with Tommy Rees. Didn't do it with the other quarterbacks with it here. So, that's one reason. The other reason is he's, 235 pounds. He's big. He's strong. And down there, if you're going to go double out some really talented receivers, you get friendly boxes to run the football. So I think those two things right there. And he's a guy that enjoys running the football. And so you put all those two things together, and that's why those plays are called.
Manti Te'o was here on Saturday. I don't know how
I
much
saw
you
him.
got a chance to talk to him, but
I did.
It was nice to see him come back. I know his schedule's been crazy, but to see the fans welcome him and the
Yeah.
players, and Joe Schmidt was so complimentary to him after the game. He said something to the effect of, "Thanks for showing me how."
Yeah.
Great to see him here.
It was great to see him and Justin Utupo, Kona Schwenke, all of our guys that we've recruited from distance. To get them all here, but in particular, great to have a young man that is so revered, so well liked, was so influential in so many people here, and what we did as a football program, on his time off to come back. Those are the kind of bridges you want built for your former players to feel comfortable to come back, and it was good to see.
In some ways, to me, it seems like it was so long ago, but it was just a couple years ago. I mean, that was such an incredible season for him. Do you think fondly of those days?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just having Manti out there, you felt like, it was going to be very difficult for teams to score points because of his penchant for being around the football, for making plays, for motivating on the sideline. He was always into it. So, slept pretty good late in the year with him on our team.